Hello everyone, welcome to the Eternal Spoiler Breakdown. Our spoiler breakdown is mercifully short today, so we only have 3 cards to talk about. 2 of them are spoilers from this week, and one of them is a card that I missed, Mysterium Orb, which is a 3-cost Praxis card that gives you +1 maximum power for each of your explorers, and gives your sentinels endurance and overwhelm. I have plenty of reason to be excited about Mysterium Orb. I do really like ramp, and I really like basically any kind of ramp that's just fun to play. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with all sorts of cool ramp decks. Now, Mysterium Orb is definitely providing you with some useful stuff here. It gives you the maximum power with your explorers, which is to say Initiate of the Sands, and also other explorers such as Evelina, dinosaur-type explorers. You can just use this card to get up to some of the bigger, more expensive cards in the deck, or in your deck, which could include a wide variety of cool things. I am excited about the possibilities of this card. I do like the fact that essentially it has very good synergy, because first off you have the explorers themselves that, you want to have explorers in general to sort of shore up your early game, and you're already using those cards to ramp to your big stuff anyways. But then the big stuff is Sentinels, which is to say Sandstorm Titans, Reality Wardens, Heart of the Vault, I believe, is a Sentinel, and the new 8-drop Titans, Lava Blood Goliath. I actually think Lava Blood Goliath might be a giant. But regardless, you get big Sentinels with Mysterium Orbs. They get Endurance and Overwhelm, which are 2 of the least useful skills, but also 2 of the skills that are just gonna give your sentinels the most presence. Like, endurance will make it so that the sentinels are very, very hard to kill or distract. You can't really get past them. They just kind of shore up the early game against aggro, which means that you have good early game and late game against aggro. And yeah, it's pretty solid stuff. Oh, Evelina is a mage. You are correct. Amber Acolyte is the explorer. Is it Evelina that's... Wait, Evelina isn't a mage. What are we talking about? Initiative Sands is a mage. Okay, yeah. No, Evelina is an explorer. All right. Man. Yes, in any case. Lava Blood Goliath is now a Sentinel. Yeah, he was a giant. He got changed to a Sentinel. So Mysterium Orb is a card that you can use to actually play Lava Blood Goliath, and that's pretty fun. I like the idea of playing this card in a Divining Rod deck to try and get out earlier Divining Rods, but there aren't that many Overwhelm Explorers. I'm pretty sure that the one that I'd like, Cult Aspirant, is in fact a Cultist. So, but nonetheless, like, you can get a decent amount of ramp, get very, very big 7, 8, and 9 drops out of this card. They don't have to be Sentinels because Endurance and Overwhelm isn't the central point of this card, but if they are Sentinels, which is to say if you're using this card just to, oh, I don't know, play some Temple Scribes and a couple of Explorers and then play out like Hall of Lost Kings on turn 4 or 5, then you're probably pretty okay with just having a bunch of Endurance and Overwhelm Sentinels. But, like, yeah, you can use this card to get a lot of decent ramp stuff out. I think that overall it should go into plenty of decks. The fact that the maximum power is based on your explorers means that your opponent will focus more heavily on your explorers, and that can be very beneficial to you if you manage to stick some sentinels. So, a worthy inclusion. The big risks around it are, first off, that attachment destruction is actually fairly heavy right now. Disjunction is very good, Banish is very good, Shatterglass Mage is very good. It would appear that we are just in an area where relics are a little bit more difficult, and 3-cost relics are in particular in a pretty dangerous spot because they're pretty vulnerable to Banish, and Banish against them doesn't feel like a waste of time, whereas with like a Power Orb or something like that, banishing almost never happens because people want to save their banishes for bigger things. So, like, yeah, I think that Mysterium Orb has some risks, mainly that if your opponent can play around it for long enough, it becomes irrelevant, and if they can banish it or get rid of it, then it becomes irrelevant as well. So I would say that there are some ways in which this card can really come back to bite you, and ramping cards in general do offer negative card advantage for potential payoffs. So this is a risky card, but it's certainly worth it if you can get that ramp. Okay, let's talk about the 2 that are actually spoiled today. First off, RNG Eternals official spoiler. I got a good look at this card, and I am pretty excited about it, and apparently the image for it is much higher quality than the one that I was using for the Mysterium Orb. So that's good to know. This is Daring Pioneer, a 4/4 Overwhelm at 2 blue with, when an enemy plays a spell, sacrifice Daring, Pioneer to negate it. Okay, first off, the two negatives to this card. If you play the spell, it is not a May ability. Daring Pioneer must be sacrificed to the spell. Secondly, if you have two Daring Pioneers down, it kills both of them, which is a really unfortunate way of the stack way for the stack to behave, but does mean that double Daring Pioneers is just never a thing that you want to play, because there are way too many ways that could go wrong. Seek Power is just the most common one. However, this card is aggro at its best. It's really nice in blue, and I think that it actually fills a strong power void that blue 3-drops are missing. So this card has close to False Prince stats. It's extremely big and fat. It has Overwhelm, which means that it's going to get through 3/3s and 2/2s and actually deal some damage across. And in addition, it just automatically locks down your opponent's first spell. And automatically locking down your opponent's first spell at any particular point in time can be quite good. At the right point in time, it's disgusting. Playing Daring Pioneer on the turn that your opponent is planning to harsh rule is just going to wreck their day. There's no doubt about it. Like, if you have it on turn 4 and you just top deck it in the middle of the game, then that's a pretty good time for it. If you play it on the turn that you expect your opponent to channel the Tempest to you to finally stabilize, and just stops them from doing that for one turn, then that's totally worth it as well. Daring Pioneer has a really high skill ceiling, and I think that while learning when to play it is really important, the ability to play it and counter a spell before that spell has occurred is very, very strong. And overall, this card definitely has good aggro potential. So, yeah. Nuts Primal card. This thing is just gonna do a lot of work. The drawbacks, of course, with the Seek Power or Torches, like, you can just, like, it can get killed by any one card, but I would rather just counter a Seek Power with Daring Pioneer than not counter a Seek Power with Daring Pioneer. Like, I would say that if you play the 4/4 and then your opponent Seek Powers in response, well, they're down a power. So I'm okay with that in an aggro deck, that they had to spend 1 power to try and get rid of this card, and they still don't get the spell. So yeah, this is going to develop on tempo. It's going to be very, very good. How many you want to play is going to be very dependent on what kind of deck you want to play around, but it does really do a good job of establishing a pretty bad situation for your opponent. And even as a top deck, it's fairly strong, because you can put it into, if your opponent's in top deck mode, Daring Pioneer makes top decks very, very ugly. Not only do they have to get rid of the card with a spell, but basically any spell that they get is not going to be in any way useful. You can't, like, Wisdom the Elder your way out of that. You can't get Channel the Tempest and suddenly just find your big bomb. Like, Daring Pioneer shuts things down pretty hard, and it's only when your opponent has choices that it becomes a little bit better. Nonetheless, I do think this card's very strong. Spiky, fun, should add a lot of power to blue, and we're always looking for more power in blue right now, which it looks like thus far we've gotten 2 or 3. All right. I do think this card is good enough for Constructed. I think this card is a bananas Constructed card, and I think it's actually a very good draft card as well. All right, Amelie Cloudmarshal. 5-cost 4/8. This is the conclusion to Infernal Tyrant. It might be announcing a cycle, or not Infernal Tyrant, Tyrant of Shadowlands Tyrant. Man. Alright, so yeah, Shadowlands Tyrant, the 6/4 that attacked and gave 1 damage to an opponent, was a really interesting sort of mechanic that we talked about as being particularly good in Shadow. Amelie Cloudmarshal is offering something different. She's not as good without her recursion, but she has a much better stat line, which is to say she is a 4/8 with flying. Now, when Amelie attacks, she plays a 1/1 Valkyrie with flying, and then increases that ability by +1/+1, which is to say that she makes lots of Valkyries. If you want to do Valkyrie Tribal, if you want to do Valkyrie Shenanigans, Amelie's a great choice. Whiskey Bravo, thank you for subbing and supporting the stream. That is wonderful of you, sir. And welcome to YouTube as well. Okay, so Amelie, The stat line means that she's basically unkillable in the air. It's very, very hard to get rid of this card in red, and you just need to have something better to do that with. 4 attack means she is vulnerable to Vanquish, which is always the card that slays the big beasts, but overall, that is a good stat line for a 5-cost card. So even though Amelie's attack trigger is actually not that impressive, a 1/1 Valkyrie is not that great, a 2/2 Valkyrie is kind of okay, a 3/3 Valkyrie, now we're really starting to talk about, like, at the point where you have a 3/3 Valkyrie, your board is probably pretty won, and it's going to be Harsh Rule that basically decides whether or not you're in a good position. So Amelie as a threat I don't think is particularly strong, but I think that because of the stat line that she offers defensively, because of the Valkyrie synergy she offers with Bond and Ally, and because of the ability to spiral the game out of control over a long period of turns, as any good top deck should, I think she has a lot of good things going on. Like, she's really, really solid. So yeah, this card's fairly powerful. I'm looking forward to the cycle. I'm going to make some predictions about the cycle. Like, we could see a fairly bad blue card with draw a card and increase this ability by +1, which would be delightful. Or we could see a card that does like something slightly smaller. We could see, you know, Grenadin and extra Grenadin. We could see all sorts of interesting things. I'm very curious to see exactly what kind of abilities are going to be increasing and what the cycle is going to look like. If it is in fact a cycle, it might just be an Argenport pair. Regardless, Amelie is awesome. Like, this is a really good, well-rounded card. I would say both of the cards that were spoiled today are gonna be very good and constructed. Amelie has some weaknesses. That triple influence is a little bit deep, and also there are just a lot of good things to do at 5 in Justice, not amongst them Tavrod, Auric Broker, and Harsh Rule. But yeah, like, this is a solid addition to that should make Mono Justice decks and Valkyrie decks very happy. So yeah, she should see play in quite a few constructed decks. I would say that she will be as popular, but maybe not quite as popular as that 4/4. I think that 4/4 is going to be defining some Primal stuff. So yeah, there's not much to spoil today. I will have a spoiler on Friday of this week, should be around 8:30 to 9 PST. So tune into my stream and you'll see a thing. But if you don't tune into my stream, it'll be on YouTube shortly after. So feel free to like or subscribe if you are a YouTuber and you're watching this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you YouTube folks next time. Cheers.